Am I audible and the screen is visible to everyone? Please give me the reply. Am I audible and the screen is visible? Perfect, 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 perfect. Okay. Okay. Friends, every one of you, please answer my simple question. My question is, name the hormone that is involved in the production of the milk. I'm not asking the ejection, okay? What is the name of the hormone that is involved in the production of the milk? So the production of the milk is the prolactin and the ejection of the milk is the oxytocin. Correct, na? Not to get confused with that. No, 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 no. Someone said oxytocin. No, Nancy, I asked which is only in the production. Okay, okay, I got it. Ejection will be the oxytocin. Very good, very good. Okay. What is the example of a mixed gland? What is the example of a mixed gland apart from the pancreas? Don't give me the pancreas as an example. Example of the mixed gland apart from the pancreas. Every one of you has to give me the answer. Any one of you. All the students remember, friends, pancreas as well as the gonads. All the gonads are actually comes under the very good, Srinivas. Very good. Good, Arshia. Very good. So all the gonads will comes under which category? They all comes under the heterocrine or the mixed glands only. Very good. Very good. Okay. So what we understand now, we understand in the yesterday class, we studied different type of hormones. What are the hormones that we have studied? We have studied the two posterior pituitary hormones. If every one of you very quickly a recall. So now everyone try to understand the point very correctly here without confusion. Why it is not opening? 1 second, friends. What's happening? I'm not getting. Yes. Okay, now let's focus. In the yesterday class, we have studied about two type of posterior pituitary hormones, that is the oxytocin as well as the antidiuretic hormone. If everyone quickly recall what we discussed, that the posterior pituitary gland is not at all, synthesizing any hormone. Instead of synthesizing the hormone, it is just storing the hormone. That's all. Apart from the storage, it is not doing anything. It will store and it keep on releasing that particular hormone whenever it is required into the blood circulation or into the targeted area. Last and final question to all of you. What is the name of the cells or what are the name of the neurons that are having the ability or capability to secrete hormones? What are the name of the neurons that are involved in the secretion of hormones? What do we call them as? Neurosecretory cells. Why do we call it as the neurosecretory, friends? Because they are the neuron, they are involved in the secretion. Secretion means which is releasing. They are going to release something actually, not to get confused with that particular point. Okay, now all the students try to understand. So we have completed studying about the two important hormones of the posterior pituitary, that is the oxytocin and ADH. Later in the yesterday class, we just started the anterior pituitary. Now let's try to understand all the hormones. As I told you in the yesterday class, friends, we should not leave any hormone in the endocrine system chapter. We have to read every hormone actually with respect to the diseases. In our CSIR level, they never ask the questions from the diseases, but in all other public service commission exams, they compulsory raise the questions even from the diseases also. So now listen, the first anterior pituitary hormone we are going to study is the follicle stimulating hormone. Let me tell you one very common point to all of you. That is, friends, follicle stimulating hormone as well as luteinizing hormone. All the students listen my words. These two hormones, I am talking two hormones, are acting on the gonads. What I mean to say, FSH also act on the ovaries, LH also act on the ovaries. FSH also act on the testes and LH also act on the testes. But friends, the way they act is entirely different. But what's the most interesting point? The most interesting point is that This FSH and LH is under the control of what? It is under the control of a GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. And we all people commonly know that this gonadotropin releasing hormone is under the control of what, friends? Under the control of hypothalamus. So what I'm trying to explain you, friends, if we want to control this, if we want to control the level of the FSH and LH, even you can control directly from the hypothalamus also, or you can control from the GnRH also. Anyway, let me explain you. 90% of the cases, friends, you are going to get the question from the matching. So that's why I'm requesting all of you to remember the matching part very clearly. Okay, FSH. Act on the ovaries and testes. What happens in the ovary? Suppose example, this is the ovary. On the outer layer of ovary, you are all able to see here, we will see in the reproductive system, there are certain follicle cells are there, which we generally call it as, friends, ovarian follicle cells. Listen everyone. So what this particular FSH will do, friends, the FSH stimulate this ovarian follicle cells. The moment ovarian follicle cells got stimulated, what they are doing, they are releasing the hormone estrogen. This is the direct function. We are not, see, listen, we are not reading the reproductive system, okay? We are reading the hormone. So we have to only focus on their function and most importantly, regulation. So it stimulates the ovarian follicle to release the estrogen. The same FSH in the males, what it is doing, it is involved in the sperm production. But what's the point? The FSH, whether it is in the male or female, it is under the control of the GnRH. The GnRH is actually releasing from what? Hypothalamus. I will show you the regulation. Now you look into the luteinizing hormone. So it is also gonadotropin hormone. So it is also act on the ovaries. It is also act on the testes. In the ovaries, the most important function performed by the luteinizing hormone is what, friends? The process of ovulation. What do you mean by that? Listen, every one of you. It is completely releasing the egg from what? Mature ovarian. Suppose this is the mature ovarian follicle. Now from here, the egg is released out. Friends, the moment egg is released out, what happens to this remaining entire? Put your mics, please. Put your mics. Okay. So listen to me, everyone. So what it is actually doing, friends, all the students listen. This, but once the mature ovarian follicle, once the egg got released out, immediately what is going to happen? This remaining entire part can be converted into the corpus luteum. Now the point what we have to remember, what happens to this particular corpus luteum, friends? This particular corpus luteum is developed, or it is going to give rise to an important hormone which we can call as progesterone. We know, right? Progesterone is one of the most important hormone in the female body, which plays a key role in the development of the secondary sexual characteristics, such as the breast development, smooth voice, all those during the time of the puberty. The same hormone, that is the LH, in case of a testis, what it is doing, it is involved in the secretion of the testosterone. Like, however, we are calling progesterone is the hormone in case, progesterone is the major hormone in case of a female. Similarly, testosterone can act as a male sex hormone, which is involved in the development of secondary sexual characteristics, such as development of the mustache, development of the beard, and development of the rough voice in the males. That is what, even development of the muscle growth and development of the sexual characteristics. So that are all mediated by what hormone? Testosterone. So the point what you have to remember, this testosterone and progesterone under the control of LH, and the LH is under the control of GnRH, and the GnRH is under the control of hypothalamus. So what I'm trying to explain you, you can control everything from the hypothalamus only. So after 2 slides, I will explain you the diagram regulation. Just listen. So what you people has to remember with respect to the functions, I am requesting you don't focus on much. except the function. I will tell you what depth you have to focus. So just to remember as a straightforward option, FSH and LH. In case of female, what the FSH will do and what it will do in case of a males. FSH in case of a females stimulate the ovarian follicle. There is a development of the estrogen. In case of a males, it is involved in the sperm production. And what about the females, friends? In case of a female, it is a, I'm sorry, LH I'm talking about. Please mute your audio and video. Please don't make any kind of a disturbance. It's a humble request from my side. And what this particular LH is doing, friends, LH in case of a female, it is involved in the development of progesterone. In case of a male, what it is actually doing, friends, in case of male, it is involved in the development of the testosterone. You remember this, because what we can expect is the matching based question. They never give only FSH and LH in the matching. They will include 5 to 6 hormones in one matching question. So in that point, in that particular time, you have to remember the major functions performed by the FSH and LH. Now, I have told you very clearly not to confuse with my words. Prolactin is the hormone. You all people has given the answer. It is involved in the production. Right. And I have also told you that very clearly. Oxytocin is the one which is involved in the ejection. This is absolutely true. But what is the point you have to remember? Do you think prolactin will be active all the time in the body? No. Suppose, listen, try to understand me what exactly I'm trying to explain you. Before the pregnancy, the mammary glands of the woman never secrete any kind of a milk. The milk production never occurred. Now the question is very clear. How? Why the mammary glands of the woman is never secrete any kind of a prolactin or any kind of a milk secretion before the pregnancy? What is the reason? The reason is very simple. Before the pregnancy, the prolactin get completely inhibited. How the prolactin is getting inhibited completely? By an important hormone called as a prolactin inhibiting hormone, which we also call it as what, friends? Dopamine. So this is the question directly asked in the GATE exam also, as well as the IIT JAM also. Even in the CSIR also this question asked. Which of the following hormone is involved in the inhibiting the prolactin before the pregnancy? That is called dopamine. We can also call it as prolactin inhibiting hormone. Friends, here comes another very, very interesting point. What was that? So now the pregnancy started. Now, during the pregnancy time, when the woman started reaching the 6th to 7th month, the prolactin level has to be increased actually. Now, after the pregnancy, the prolactin levels become more and more and more. Now, the question is very clear. The prolactin got suppressed because of the dopamine or because of the prolactin inhibiting hormone. Now, what we have to do? Now, I have to increase the production of the prolactin. Then what hormone is going to release? There is a hormone called as a PRH. We can call it prolactin releasing hormone. Not to get confused with that. What is the function of prolactin releasing hormone? It will go and suppress. What it will go and suppress? It will go and suppress the prolactin inhibiting hormone, or it will go and suppress the level of the dopamine. Now, every student try to understand the important point what I'm saying. Sometimes, I'm saying only sometimes in the woman, the prolactin hormone, prolactin releasing hormone, it won't release in the minimum concentration. It won't release actually sometimes. That time, how does this dopamine is getting inhibited? By the suckling action of nursing infant. That's also a very important statement. Because of this, when the infant starts suckling, then what happen? This level start decreasing completely. The prolactin level will become more. Then the prolactin will come and associated with the receptors present in a particular cells of the mammary gland. Then automatically that time, because the delivery is over, which means that oxytocin is already present. So oxytocin start ejecting the milk from the mammary gland. So what's the point you have to remember? So they can ask a very direct question in the exam. during the suckling action of the nursing infant, which hormones are getting activated? That's a good question. So oxytocin is also getting activated. Prolactin is also getting activated during the suckling action of nursing infant. Same question, during the suckling action of nursing infant, which is getting inhibited? That's the good question. Prolactin inhibiting hormone or dopamine? These two get inhibited, these two get activated. This will eject the milk, whichever producer by this particular hormone, prolactin, not to get confused with that particular point. You have to remember when it is getting activated, why it is getting activated, when it is getting inhibited, and why it is getting inhibited. That's also a very important point, not to get confused with that. So now all the students remember the most important hormone. Many number of times the asked question in the exam, very important, very interesting, very depth, you have to know it. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, widely called as ACTH. I will explain you briefly, just follow me correctly. As I already told you, no hormone in our body is not releasing whenever there is a no requirement. It is obviously releasing whenever there is a requirement. Now, I can't conclude that adrenocorticotropic hormone is only involved in the releasing of one or two hormones. It is actually involved in release of many hormones. Among the many hormones, among the many hormones, one of the major hormone that is activated by the adrenocorticotropic hormone is cortisol. No friends, what is the cortisol? Cortisol is the stress hormone. When we are under stress condition, cortisol will release immediately. How it is going to release the cortisol? Not to get confused, just to follow me what exactly I'm saying. All the students try to understand. Let's understand the condition, friends. Let's understand the condition. I am under the stress. Under the stress condition, example of the stress condition, what I can give you? I can give you a low blood glucose level in my body. I can also give you a point that there is a physical trauma, right? Internal bleeding is happening, right? Now listen. So during this particular stress condition, which are getting activated immediately, all of you pay attention. Corticotropin releasing hormone is getting activated. What is getting activated? Corticotropin releasing hormone is getting activated. From where? That's also a very important question, right? From where the CRH is getting released? Undoubtedly, friends, the CRH is actually releasing from the hypothalamus. There is no doubt about it. Now listen to me. You also know very well which cells of the hypothalamus is releasing the corticotropin releasing hormone. Undoubtedly, friends, neurosecretory cells only. Okay, you got the point. That is very clear point. Now try to understand me. Now this corticotropin releasing hormone, focus, via hypophyseal portal system, that is through the blood vessels, it entered into the anterior pituitary gland. The moment it entered into the anterior pituitary gland, listen everyone, the CRH stimulated the anterior pituitary gland. Then what the anterior pituitary gland is going to do? It is going to release the second hormone. So first, see, what's the condition? Condition is the stress. Because of the stress, there is a release of first hormone from the hypothalamus, CRH. There is a second hormone, which we can call the corticotropin. All the students has to follow me very correctly. Then immediately what is going to happen, friends? Immediately this adrenocorticotropin hormone act on the adrenal gland. We will discuss that. You all people know very well, adrenal gland contain adrenal cortex. It also contain adrenal medulla. Medulla is the inner part. Cortex is the periphery or the outer region. Now try to understand me very correctly. Now friends, that particular adrenal cortex, it is going to release another hormone. What was that hormone? Cortisol. Now let me tell you what the cortisol is going to do in our body, because it's a very important hormone, the question which is asked widely in the exam. Now all the students listen. Once again, I am explaining you the same slide in a little elaborative way. What's the condition, friends? The condition is the stress. The moment we are under the stress condition, the neurosecretory cells present in the hypothalamus is getting activated. immediately release the corticotropin releasing hormone through the portal vessel. It reaches anterior pituitary, it activate the anterior pituitary gland to release the adrenocorticotropin hormone. The adrenocorticotropin hormone act on the adrenal cortex, immediately release the cortisol. Now you try to understand what's happening. This is the question you have to remember for the exam. Finally, cortisol released. There is no doubt about it. But the point is, friends, what this particular cortisol is doing. That's the question. Cortisol is doing gluconeogenesis. Protein mobilization or protein breakdown you can consider. Fat mobilization or fat breakdown you can consider. Stabilizing the lysosome. Let me explain to all of you very clearly. Now I want every student has to answer. Tell me, Sharmila, what is the name of every student answer? Tell me, Sunita, what is the name of the hormone that stimulate the process of the gluconeogenesis? First of all, tell me, what do you mean by the word gluconeogenesis? We are going to study in the biochemistry very clearly. What is gluconeogenesis? See, friends, today, suppose example, just listen every one of you carefully. Today I had a biryani, which means I got a lot of energy, means I got a lot of proteins, I got a lot of carbohydrates. So now what is happening in my body? Whatever the glucose is required for me, that much glucose I will use. I am going to convert that glucose into glycogen. And that glycogen is where, friends, stored in the liver. Correct, na? It is stored in the liver. That is absolutely true. Now the point is very clear. Tomorrow morning, I am doing fasting, which means that from tomorrow morning till tomorrow evening, I am not going to eat anything, but still I can easily survive, right? So what's going to happen over there? You all people commonly know that glycogen is getting breakdown into glucose. I am asking what hormone? No one is answering. Very good, Samit. Wonderful. What will be the answer? That is the glucagon. Glucagon is the hormone which is actually converting the glycogen to the glucose. Not to get confused with that point. Now the question is very clear. All the students listen. I am doing fasting second day also. See, friends, there is a different terms are there always make you confused. If you are under the first 24 hours of your fasting, okay, you can use the word fasting actually. Right. Whenever it crosses 24 hours, we don't use the word fasting. We use the word harvesting. Friends, now you only tell me whatever the glycogen that is there, we already break it down. Now that glucose also we used. Now there is a no carbohydrate. Now tell me what I am going to do now. I have to break down the protein. I have to break down the lipid. I have to break down the lactic acid. Now you tell me, friends, does the protein, lactic acid, as well as the lipids, are they carbohydrates? No, they are not carbohydrates. So now listen, what is the definition? Gluconeogenesis. Genesis, production. Glucose. Neo means new. Production of the glucose other than the carbohydrates. Very good. What I'm trying to explain you, production of the glucose other than the carbohydrate, that is called gluconeogenesis. Friends, the process of gluconeogenesis can be stimulated by the hormone glucagon also, as well as the hormone cortisol also. Not to get confused with that. So it promotes gluconeogenesis. It stimulates the liver cells to convert amino acids, to convert lactic acid into glucose. By that, during the fasting conditions, see, you know, right, who require more energy? First of all, brain require constant supply of the glucose. Friends, every one of you commonly know that if you give lipid as an energy source to the brain never receive that lipid source as an energy. If you provide protein source as an energy source to the brain never receive. What is the only energy source for the brain? The only sole source, that is the glucose. Only glucose can cross the blood-brain barrier actually. So only glucose provide the instant energy to the brain in the form of ATP. Then brain can control and coordinate every activity in the body. Simple point it is. So cortisol not only, so what do you mean by the word gluconeogenesis? Production of the glucose other than the carbohydrates. What are other than carbohydrates? Proteins. Other than carbohydrates, which are lipids. So friends, the point is very clear. The hormone cortisol is involved in the breakdown of the protein also. The hormone cortisol is involved in the breakdown of the lipids also. What are lipids? Triglyceride. Every student commonly know that. What is the most common type of a lipid that is stored in our body or in adipose tissue? Which is undoubtedly triacyl glycerol. So now some people will get one very good doubt. Sir, actually, adipocytes are present in different regions in the body. Adipocyte regions are present in the stomach region. They are present in the buttock region. They will present in the thigh region also. And some people will get a doubt that, sir, whenever we are doing the fasting, from where most of the stored lipid is getting utilized. So first I can tell you that, friends, it will start from stomach only actually, because stomach is the region where the maximum number of adipocytes are located. So they start utilizing that particular stored lipid instantly during the fasting or the harvesting condition. Not only that, so cortisol not only involved in the protein breakdown, not only involved in the lipid breakdown, very important point is that it is involved in increasing the stress resistance. Such an important statement it is. Friends, if you ask me a very good question, let me tell you one very good question here. Whenever we are we are feeling extremely happy, we are under extremely stress condition, we are under normal condition. Now you listen my words very correctly. Whenever we are under normal condition, we are not super happy, we are not super stressed, or we are not super depressed also. You know what happened? In the normal condition, our cells will use a limited amount of ATP only. But friends, whenever you are under happy also, see the point. Even though you are under extreme level of happiness, even though you are under the extreme level of stress, in both condition, the number of ATP molecules used by the cell will become doubled or tripled when compared to the normal condition, especially in the stress. Don't think that when we are under the stress, we don't use any energy. When we are under the stress, our healthy energy is completely drained out. So what happened now? Whatever the ATP generated by the liver cells, it can be used, because you know, right? Liver is the king of the metabolism. So in the liver only, mostly entire glycogen is getting breakdown. So as a result, we'll get more amount of the ATP. Now that ATP will be used in certain situations like fasting, fright, infection, trauma, which is the internal injury. Now the question is very clear. Who is stimulating the liver to produce the ATP? That's the question. Undoubtedly, cortisol is involved in stimulating the liver to produce more amount of the ATP. Then the next one, very interesting point. This is very interesting point. Anti-inflammatory effect. Who is having anti-inflammatory effect? Who is showing here? Cortisol is showing the anti-inflammatory effect. Now listen. You know very well what is a anti-inflammatory effect means, which is suppressing the inflammation process. Now you all people has to get a one very interesting question. What is that very interesting question you have to get? See, listen what I have written. It inhibits the inflammatory reactions by inhibiting the WBC. What the cortisol is doing, it is blocking the WBC or inhibiting the WBC. That is the reason we use the cortisol as one of the drug choice to treat autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis. Every student commonly know, right? What is rheumatoid arthritis, friends? Which is the chronic inflammation. It is not acute, right? It's a permanent condition, right? We can call chronic inflammation of the joints. If the person wants to get up from the chair, it will take nearly 30 to 40 seconds of time just to get up from the chair. So that much swelling occur in the middle part of the joints. That is called rheumatoid arthritis. Now that is not my question. My question is, I'm using a word, cortisol can be used one of the drug choice. I never said to any one of you cortisol is the major drug of choice, major drug that is used in the rheumatoid arthritis treatment. No. Then you can ask me, sir, then why you have written a line that it is used to treat the autoimmune diseases? Listen, the point we have written, it is actually inhibiting all the WBC. Now remember, actually, which chemical mediators are involved in the process of inflammation? I have told you many times, you also know very well, prostaglandins are the chemicals as well as leukotrienes. Prostaglandins will cause the inflammation, leukotrienes will cause the pain. These two plays a key role in the inflammation. But why we don't use the cortisol? Because cortisol inhibit prostaglandin, cortisol inhibit leukotrienes. There is no problem up to here. But friends, cortisol is going to block neutrophil also. It is going to block basophil also. It is going to block eosinophil also. So it is trying to block by inhibiting almost all the WBC cell along with the prostaglandin and leukotriene. That's why it is not a correct drug of choice in the treatment of the rheumatoid arthritis. But what I'm trying to explain you, it is one of the drug of the choice, not the major drug, not to get confused with this point. So I'm quickly summarizing to all of you. Listen, the moment cortisol is released from the adrenal cortex, it will promote gluconeogenesis by protein breakdown, lipid breakdown, and it will stimulate the liver to produce abundant amount of energy or ATP during the stress condition. And it is also involved in the anti-inflammatory effects. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Now, the most crucial step is what, friends? The crucial step is the regulation. Regulation is always the most important step. Now, you only listen. Finally, cortisol is released. Cortisol performed every single function. It's over. Now, we came out from the stress condition. Now, you tell me, in the yesterday class, when I am giving you the definition or the properties of the hormone, we all people studied very clearly that every hormone, whether it is a plant hormone in the body or an animal hormone in the body, it has to be released compulsory in the low concentration in the body. What I told you, friends, in the yesterday class, more the concentration, low the activity. Low the concentration, activity will become more. Always remember that. Now you only try to understand. Now cortisol performed all the functions. It's over. Now what should I do now? I have to regulate. Please mute your mics. Please mute your mics. So what the now what we have to do? We have to regulate the cortisol because we should not allow the cortisol to be released in the higher concentration. So what we have to do now, listen to me very carefully. Now I want to control the cortisol. So friends, listen my words. Elevated levels of cortisol. What do you mean by that word? Excessive levels of the cortisol automatically send the signal. Where the signal is moving, the first signal moves to the anterior pituitary gland and the second signal move to the hypothalamus directly. So if the first signal moves to the anterior pituitary gland never release the ACTH. Without ACTH, there is no cortisol. So cortisol production is stopped. So the major controlling area is what? Hypothalamus. Hypothalamus only received a signal that the cortisol already shown the function, the levels are getting elevated. Then immediately what happened? The neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus stops releasing the corticotropin releasing hormone. If no CRH, no ACTH, if no ACTH, no adrenal cortex activation, there is a no cortisol. So this is how every hormone is getting regulated in our body. It's a common type of the regulation, not to get confused with that. All the students, please look into the diagram very correctly without having any confusion. Just follow me. This is the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus contain what kind of cells? See friends, I am talking every hormone in our body will show the same mechanism. Every hormone. Neurosecretory cells are going to release a hormone, which is called hormone 1. We will consider example here only. Corticotropin releasing hormone is the hormone 1. Then via blood circulation, it reaches to the pituitary gland. It stimulates the pituitary gland to synthesize the hormone 2. What is that particular hormone 2? We can call it adrenocorticotropin hormone. Now that adrenocorticotropin hormone act on the targeted gland. What is the targeted gland in this particular case? In this particular case, targeted gland is the adrenal gland. So it acts on the adrenal cortex and releases what hormone? The final hormone, which is the cortisol. Now you only see the picture. When the cortisol level got activated, become excess. See here, it's sending the signal directly to the hypothalamus, or it's sending the signal to the pituitary gland. If it goes to the hypothalamus, entire pathway got blocked. But if the signal goes to the pituitary gland, it will block up to here. But the point is very clear. Every single time the signal will reach us to both hypothalamus also, as well as the specific gland that secretes that particular hormone. This is how every single hormone is getting regulated in our body. It is mandatory. Every hormone has to be regulated. Now, friends, what are the various hormones we have studied so far? We have studied oxytocin, we have studied antidiuretic hormone, we have studied FSH, we have studied LH, we have studied the prolactin, and we have studied the adrenocorticotropin hormone. This many we have studied. Now try to understand the next hormone, that is the hormones released by the thyroid gland. Very, very important. Many times asked question also, because endocrine system is a very complex concept. They can interlink one hormone with another hormone and they will raise the questions. Thyroid gland. The moment you heard the name of a thyroid gland, you all people commonly has to remember one common point: T3 and T4. These two hormones under the control of thyroid gland. You all people please look into the diagram very correctly, friends. Okay, to up down. Okay, my voice is clear for others. I think, madam, it's from your side. Okay, Renuka, please refresh. From my side, it is very clear. Rejoin or refresh. When you get a technical problem, you should always refresh. Okay. Okay, please continue. So thyroid gland, all the students, please look into this, friends, and look into this beautiful picture. You can see, right? This is what, friends? This is the voice box, which we generally call as larynx. You look into the picture. Exactly below the voice box, you are all able to see this particular picture, which we can call it as the thyroid gland. Now, I don't know whether you can observe the diagram very correctly or not. You can see the picture correctly. Within the thyroid gland only, certain other glands are situated. You are all able to see that, which we can call it what, friends? Parathyroid glands. Anyway, we will talk about the parathyroid glands later, but focus on the thyroid gland first. See, friends, if you look, see, this is the thyroid gland, right? If you look into the thyroid gland very correctly, friends, it is separated by left lobe. It is separated by a right lobe. What? Right lobe and left lobe. All the students keep the point in your mind very correctly. The right lobe and left lobe can be separated by a middle structure. Just remember this point, which we can call the isthmus. Isthmus is the structure, which is a microscopic structure, which is separating the left lobe of the thyroid with the right lobe of the thyroid, not to get confused with that particular point. Now, friends, try to understand me. Whether it is the left lobe or whether it is the right lobe, friends, all these, they contain certain microscopic structures like this. They contain a microscopic spherical sacs, we can call it. What do we call? Microscopic spherical sacs. That spherical sacs only, friends, we can call the thyroid follicular cells. What we can call the microscopic sac, which is present within the thyroid gland, which we can call thyroid follicular cell. That thyroid follicular cells only going to release the hormone T3 and T4, not to get confused with that particular point. So if you ask me the major functions of the T3 and T4, at the end of the PPT, I will provide you another table which consists of only functions. Now, first you listen the major functions here. The moment you heard the name T3 and T4, always remember once again, T3 and T4 also not releasing in the animal body or a human body every time. T3 and T4 is going to release whenever the levels are extremely lower. Which levels are extremely lower? When the BMR levels are lower. What is BMR? Basal metabolic rate. When the basal metabolic rate is lower, then the T3 and T4 is getting released. In other cases, what? Other case, in our body, every hormone having a particular concentration. Suppose example, there is a 0.1 gram. Example, this is the concentration of a hormone. If the concentration of hormone is, if it is below the normal or if it is above the normal, it has to be regulated immediately. Suppose friends, try to understand my words correctly. If the T3 and T4 levels are below the normal, once again, what we have to do? We have to elevate the level of the T3 and T4 compulsory. So the point is very clear. There are two major conditions when the T3 and T4 are releasing. One condition is called low BMR. Another condition is low level of T3 and T4 than its normal level. These two conditions are going to stimulate. Once again, they are going to stimulate what? The neurosecretory cells which are present in the hypothalamus. What is the name of that neurosecretory cells now? Sorry, what hormone they are releasing? Thyrotropin releasing hormone. So that is what you should not confuse. When the cortisol comes into the picture, the neurosecretory cells of the hypothalamus release what hormone? It releases CRH. Why they release CRH that time and why they release TRH this time? Because that time the hormone stimulated is cortisol. This time the hormone stimulating the neurosecretory cell is T3 and T4. So what's the point? It depending on the stimulus, it depending on the ligand, it depending on the one specific hormone, that respective hormone is getting released from the hypothalamus. Now the neurosecretory cells of hypothalamus will release the thyrotropin releasing hormone. That thyrotropin releasing hormone, once again through the blood vessel system, it reaches anterior pituitary. Now in the anterior pituitary, what it is activating? In the anterior pituitary, it is activating the thyroid stimulating hormone. Not to get confused with that particular point. Now you try to understand me very correctly. Now the moment thyroid stimulating hormone got activated, you know friends, what's going to happen now? Now this thyroid stimulating hormone will be act on. In this particular picture, I told you, right? Friends, the T3 and T4 are releasing from the follicular cells. So what I'm trying to explain you is that follicular cell will come and stimulated by the TSH. How? Suppose all the students listen to me. Suppose this is a thyroid follicle cell. The thyroid follicle cell having a receptor. To that particular receptor only, friends, the TSH will come and attaches. The moment TSH will come and attaches to the receptor present on the thyroid follicle cell, immediately thyroid follicle cell get activated and it is going to release the T3 and T4 into the blood. Then what the T3 and T4 will do? They will bring back the BMR rate to the normal. In the later slides, we will study about the BMR. BMR levels comes to the normal. T3 and T4 level also becomes normal. Then what happened? Once again, so you have to understand the point. Actually, we have stimulated the TRH. The reason is that T3 and T4 levels are less than the normal. That's why we stimulated. Now, T3 and T4 released into the blood. Now their level got balanced. If you don't regulate, what happened? Once again, remember, the level of the T3 and T4 is getting increased. They are getting elevated. The moment the T3 and T4 levels are getting elevated, immediately what is going to happen? Once again, the signal reaches to the TSH hormone present in the anterior pituitary gland. The signal reaches to the TRH present in the hypothalamus. Then they will control the T3 and T4. Not only this, every single hormone in our body has to be regulated mostly from the hypothalamus, including the FSH-LH, which is acting on the ovaries and testes, because they are actually a type of the gonadotropin hormones. That gonadotropic hormone is exclusively released from the hypothalamus. That's why every time we can call hypothalamus is the master regulatory center, which is controlling everything. Now, what we understand, friends, not to get confused with my statements. Now, all the students, listen to me correctly. Listen to me correctly. In this particular slide, I have told to all of you that in the thyroid gland, there are certain microscopic follicular cells are present. See, friends, suppose this is one follicular cell. This is another follicular cell. This is another follicular. This is another. This is another. This is another. So what I'm trying to explain you, between the follicular cell, there is another type of cells are present. What do we call that particular cell? We can call parafollicular cells. Where they are present, friends? They are present in between the follicular cell. If you look into this beautiful diagram, you can see this diagram here. This is, see, listen, this is one follicular, this is another follicular, another follicular, another follicular, another follicular. So exactly in between that particular follicular. So these are all the gaps. These are all the gaps. Here, what are present, friends? Parafollicular cells are present. What is the major function of that particular parafollicular cells? Very unique function they are going to perform. That they are going to release an important hormone. What was that? Calcitonin. If you ask me a simple question, what is the exact function of the calcitonin? I never told you that calcitonin is going to maintain the calcium homeostasis completely. No, I don't tell that. You have to remember, some students will think that if one ion is getting elevated, or if one ion is getting, the level is getting decreased, people will think that only one hormone is going to control it. But in our body, mostly one or two hormones are involved. Let me explain you. So in order to understand the calcium metabolism, you people has to understand calcitonin. Listen to me very correctly. You people has to understand parathyroid hormone. Listen to me correctly. Calcitonin is coming from what? Calcitonin is coming from the parafollicular cells of thyroid gland. Parathyroid hormone is coming from what? Parathyroid hormone is coming from the parathyroid gland. Now let me explain you in the diagram how they are going to control. Listen, this is the calcitonin and this is the parathyroid hormone. Look into this picture very correctly, all of you, without confusion. Homeostasis, that is the normal calcium levels in the blood. Just listen my words very correctly without confusion. Just try to understand me. First of all, is there any necessity to maintain the homeostasis all the time? First of all, what do you mean by the word homeostasis? Maintenance of internal environmental condition, or maintenance of the internal condition. That is what we can call the homeostasis. You can call very good equilibrium condition. Now you have to ask me, which processes in our body will show the equilibrium or homeostasis condition? What not? Every process. Suppose example, what is our body temperature? 98.4 degree Fahrenheit. Our body temperature should not become higher. That is also trouble. At the same time, our body temperature should not become much lower also. You know, right? Both conditions we can't tolerate. When the body temperature is normal, the inner homeostasis is normal. Similarly, friends, it doesn't matter whether it is a calcium, whether it's a sodium, whether it's a potassium, whether it's a bicarbonate, whether it is a hormone. Anything in our body has to maintain the homeostasis, which means that they should not release in the higher concentration, they should not release in the lower concentration. So now we are talking majorly about the ion calcium. So now listen, try to understand. So the calcium is the level of the calcium, or the homeostasis of the calcium, regulated by two hormones. One is called calcitonin, which is releasing from the thyroid gland parafollicular cells. Another hormone called parathyroid hormone, which is releasing from the parathyroid gland. What's the interesting point? The two hormones never ever released at a time. That's an important point. So you only try to understand, not to get confused with the statement. Suppose example, in our body, the calcium levels are very excessive than the normal, very high than the normal level. What happened then? Immediately, the calcitonin from the parafollicular cells of the thyroid gland will releases, which means that, listen everyone, the moment calcitonin releases, parathyroid gland will stop releasing the parathyroid hormone. Never ever get confused with that particular point. Now all the students try to understand me very correctly without confusion. See, what's the condition now? Calcium is more. So friends, what should we do now? Suppose example, there is 1,000 mg of calcium. Example, I'm just giving you. There is 1,000 mg of excess calcium. What we have done? We have stored entire 1,000 mg of the excess calcium in the bone. But what is happening? Once again, the calcium is coming. Once again, the calcium is releasing. Now, what we have to do now? How much we can store? You can't store the entire calcium. Now, what you have to do? First of all, you have to stop the production. So then what the calcitonin will do first? Whatever the excess calcium is there, it will store first. Then it will decrease the calcium uptake in the intestine. What do you mean by that? It is not taking any calcium from the food in the intestine, because you know, right, intestine is the region where the complete or the maximum absorption is taking place. So from the food, the intestine will stop taking the calcium. As a result, no new calcium is entering. And whatever the calcium that is already present, it is moving in the form of urine. So we are decreasing the calcium reabsorption. We are not taking back the calcium. We are sending the calcium out. So when the small calcium crystals will go or will pass out of the urine, then the urine will become a completely painful. We can call it painful urine when the small calcium crystals are going very small, going out of the urine. Now, why the calcitonin is doing all this? Because the level of calcium is high. So how much ever it can store, it's stored. Now it stopped the uptake. At the same time, excess thing it has sent in the form of urine until the calcium level come back to the normal. That is what the calcitonin is gonna do. Now, what this particular parathyroid hormone is doing, friends, it is going to activate it only when the calcium level falls down than the normal. That's the unique point, not to get confused with this particular point. If the calcium levels are too low, what's going to happen now? Now, parathyroid gland release the parathyroid hormone. So what is the interesting point? If the parathyroid hormone released, obviously the calcitonin level gets suppressed. Now, if you ask me in one simple word, I can tell you that whatever the exact functions performed by the calcitonin, just opposite parathyroid hormone will perform. What this particular calcitonin does, calcitonin increase the calcium deposition because we have a excess calcium. Now, what the parathyroid hormone is doing, it is increasing the calcium release because we don't have calcium in the body. So whatever the calcium we have stored in the bones, it has to be released. It has to be released into the blood. Then it reaches to the tissues, whichever is required. Now, here, when the calcium is more, we have not taken any calcium from the food in the intestine. But now we have to compulsory take the calcium. So which means that we have to increase the calcium uptake in the intestine, not to get confused with that particular point. Next one, here we decrease the calcium reabsorption. Means we sent excess calcium in the form of urine. But here we are not sending any calcium in the form of urine. In fact, we are reabsorbing and bringing it back to the blood circulation until the calcium level comes to the normal. Since both are acting opposite, like you know, right, the hormone insulin will convert the glucose to glycogen. The hormone glucagon break down the glycogen to glucose. Both are antagonistic to each other because both are doing opposite functions. Since calcitonin is released when calcium is high, parathyroid hormone is released calcium is low, both will show antagonistic in nature. Right? Okay. Is it clear, everyone, so far? Okay. I'm telling to all, this TSPSC and Gurukul people, this is the level you have to read. But I'm telling to our CSIR people, we have to read little more depth, not in this chapter, when we are reading the molecular biology as well as the biochemistry, all other chapters. I am telling you friends, biochemistry, mol bio, cell bio, immunology, techniques, plant physiology. These 5 units are very crucial, conceptual oriented. They are the one which is actually going to decide how depth you are learning, whether you are going to crack the exam or not. Always remember that. Okay. Because human physiology is not a too depth topic, but you have to read very depth compulsory. Okay. Okay. That's all for now. Tomorrow onwards, the classes will be through the app only. I will explain to all of you in the group how to access. Okay. Okay, friends. That's all for now. I'll see you in the next class. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.